Anya, let me start by thanking you and the rest of the team for this opportunity. For us, it's all about learning. The more touch points we have with our environment, the better that we can plan. At 8 o'clock this morning, one of my large clients in the manufacturing field called and asked, "Bram, what's it looking like? What's your revenues looking like this year? Are you up or you're down? What's the number you're hearing?" I said, "So the common number is 20 to 30%. TEUs moving through the port are down 23%. We had a report in the press last week that hop sales are down." You see what we're talking about. So that is being replicated over and over and over and over again. And it will not change. But here's what. Change is not all bad. In fact, the greatest opportunities for profit usually come from change, because it's winners and losers. The word disruption is not something that I ever considered previously, until I went to a partner meeting in New York, which is effectively the head of our firm. And the CEO at the time was saying that one of the reasons that we are looking to partner with Google is because our greatest risk to our assurance business is technology. We hire qualified people. We train them for 4 to 5 years. They then leave to go to Yale. Thank you very much. And then we start all over again. What if computing power could do what we do at a higher level of assurance? What would we then do with all of our assurance people? That is change. That is disruption. Do we say we are going out of the assurance business? Absolutely not. We recognize that we have a cadre of people that are well-trained in providing assurance. Audit is just one form of assurance. And we ask ourselves, how else can we use these people to earn sustainable profits? What is our competitive advantage given this threat that is coming at us? I'm no expert. I'm 50 years old. I have 4 kids. I'm over-invested in Trinidad and Tobago. And currently, I'm certainly not serving 30% of my income. However, what I have been doing, I've been doing this job for 26 years. 15 of those years, I have interacted with C-suite executives in private sector and public sector. What I've learned over that time is that we are very tactical. We are very transaction-driven. We are not strategic. Most of the things, the transactions that we have worked on have been reactions to opportunities that present themselves, threats that present themselves, and the like. In that 15 years, I probably have done half a dozen strategic exercises. The vast majority of our companies in both the public and private sector do not plan. Straight up. They do not consider their succession, particularly in the private sector. They do not ask themselves, how are we going to get more professionals into this space to professionalize our business in a greater way? How are we going to access capital on a long-term basis? What portfolio of products are we going to be in 10 years from now? If we don't answer those questions and then set upon a journey to get there, then we probably just as might well go to the gambling hall and roll the dice. When I juxtapose that with Trinidad, price does not bother me as much. I'm no expert. I panic and look at the energy prices every morning, probably sometimes 5 or 6 times a day. And I think a $45 budget estimate for this year is probably appropriate. I too, with no real science, think that 45 to 65 is there. But here's what. Supply. Attractiveness of our jurisdiction compared to others. Shale. Low interest rates, meaning that capital will flow to shale. Technology, meaning that shale is becoming more and more competitive as an alternative. And there are other things. There are other things out there. Electric cars, for the first time, are now a viable alternative. Now, you can't run a ship, you can't run a plane, you can't run the big things off it. But here's what. We are not a central producer. We are a marginal producer with 12 years reserves left, so they say. How are we going to make the hard decisions to get our supply back to where it needs to be? So supply, and indirectly, the fiscal changes that are required to make that supply a reality, that is what concerns me. The conclusion I see my clients coming to, largely, those that have been exposed to the international space. In short, what I see them doing is diversifying away from Trinidad. Because as far as they're concerned, the systemic risks are too great. Yeah? So, long introduction. Not an expert by any means, but what I'm here to tell you is, from my perspective, my business as well, the key is planning. The key is developing a perspective of what will come. Once you have developed that perspective, move quickly to change your business along those lines. Yeah? Okay, the official presentation. Every year we do two major surveys. One on private sector companies. And by the way, that's my focus. Private sector companies. I think our government is too large. I think the part that they play in our economy is way too big. I think we've become a subsidy-driven handout state. That cannot be good. That is not good for innovation. That is not good for transformation. So for me, the focus of what I'm speaking about here today is private sector. Large, small, whatever, private sector. That is where the transformation is going to come from. That is where the transformation came from after the last recession. I remember a long, long time ago, Arthur Lockjack told me at some meeting at his office. He said, Brian, the period of recession we went through made Trinidad competitive. And that was our impetus to go out to the rest of the Caribbean and develop those markets. Again, change is opportunity. We have to not just react to change, we positively have to try to disrupt our industry, try to disrupt our competitors. Look at our artists. Record label with big contractors, I think, of the past, huge budget to produce the records, access to market, all of those things have changed. But they're still doing it successfully. They have diversified their production process to market. They have diversified geographically in terms of where they perform. And there are more performers now of a higher standard than before the crisis hit. It can be done. It absolutely can be done. But what you first have to do is to figure out what is the change that is coming. You have an advantage. You have the connections to capital, which others do not have. You have the connection to talent, which a lot of other people do not have. You have installed capacity, which a lot of other people do not have. If I look at the Bermudas and Associated Brands, or Jaleel, or Solo, or big distribution companies, it's very difficult to knock them off their perch. Why? Who is going to invest in a 1% economy to put down that distribution infrastructure to knock them off? Install capacity. They sat down, again, I'm sorry to quote Arthur so much, but he's given me many a lecture over the years. That is a sustainable advantage. Recognize what your sustainable advantage is and trade off of that. What I want to point out, though, is from a global perspective, you're going to see from our survey of 1,400 companies, 38% of them over $1 billion of revenue, 34% between $1 billion and $100 million, and the rest, somebody do the math, below $100 million. 60% of them private sector companies, and a large proportion of them private. What you're going to find from both that survey and our survey of 2,600 private sector companies, a separate survey, you're going to be shocked as to how common the challenges they face are similar to what we face. I was surprised, quite frankly. After we finish that, I'm just going to give you my thoughts as to the things that we need to do to navigate to go forward. Now, I may not be an expert, but here's what. As senior partner of the firm, I have a responsibility every day to figure this out. We have to ask ourselves the question, what business are we going to be in 5 years from now? What business are we going to be in 10 years from now? We do not know how to get there, But here's what. We're going to go out each and every day to try and validate the assertion. An ex-McKinsey, I believe it was, consultant who I worked with a long time ago, explained that that's how they work. They develop a null hypothesis. It may not be right, it may not be wrong, but we believe in X. And then spend all of their time either trying to prove or disprove that. The interaction, the learning, will make the organization better. But you cannot stay inside. You cannot just focus on the business that you're in now. And then lastly, we'll touch on millennials and their importance. Because certainly in my business, our business, as is my fellow partners here, it's a huge challenge for us. Achieving our objectives without talented people drives up the cost of doing business. We need to take that down, particularly in challenging times. Okay, so CEO confidence is down. They think that global economic and business growth prospects are going to be lower than what they were the previous year. And that is in turn lower than what they were the year before that. That's not surprising. You have Brexit. You have what seems to be a dismantling of the direction that the world was going to in terms of more free trade. We seem to be going back to trading blocks as opposed to making it broader and broader. Why I think that is happening? I simply think that the first generation settlers or the indigenous folk in Europe and America are not seeing the economic benefits of others. And what we see with Brexit and what we see with Trump is a reaction to that. And no more. We want our place at the table back. That means that protectionism and inward-looking stuff, in my view, is going to have more of an impact going forward. Another thing about our economy, just to switch back. Could you imagine what our world would look like as a one-trick pony? I mean, energy revenues are not our be-all and end-all. They're not, by any means, the vast majority of our revenues, but they are significant in terms of the change. What if Venezuela sorted itself out? Iraq is back up to full output. Iran is back up to full output. Nigeria were to deal with its insurgents. How would that world look for us? Yeah? When do you think it is likely that Iran and Iraq, not Iran, Iran and Saudi Arabia are going to back off from one another as opposed to being determined not to partner? All of those things do not spell a good outlook for us. So it's not surprising, both on a world scale and a local scale, the outlook is not as strong as it should be. What do CEOs worry about? Overregulation. For overregulation in Trinidad, switch that for bureaucracy. Yeah? Geopolitical uncertainty. Exchange rate volatility. By show of hands, all of the people in this room who think that our exchange rate is really below $7 to 1. If I had to guess, it's more like 9. But that's another story. Availability of key skills. Government response to fiscal deficit and debt burden. Look familiar? Isn't that Trinidad? Same problems. But here's what. In spite of that, 48% of CEOs in the survey say they are going to be increasing headcount. Opportunity in times of change, opportunity in times of trouble. It doesn't all go up or go down. There will always be spots where opportunity presents itself. What you have to figure out is, what do we do well? What does that installed capacity that we have allow us to gravitate to? and then to start the journey along that path. Well, I think we spoke enough about, this is the local context now. We know the story. Huge deficit. We're going to close it with asset sales. We're going to close it with other one-off measures. We're going to try and bring private sector capital into this space through the PPP initiatives. But here's what, a lot of those things can't be replicated too many times, you know. A lot of the assets that have to be sold in future rounds are energy assets. How attractive are they going to be? How easy it is going to be to monetize those through IPOs, etc., if the reserves are 9 years to go, 8 years to go, 7 years to go. So we have some structural problems. Touch enough on this. So, where do we go from now? It is about starting the process of understanding where you sit strategically as a business. Reach out to professionals. Reach out to your bankers who have a wide breadth of clients they interact with. Engage with your attorneys, similar. Engage with your counterparts. In other words, engage, engage, engage. But the key is, what will the future look like? How are we going to get there? Bring the whole organization into play in terms of defining what that will be. And most importantly, be open to change. In our organization, the loudest voice are the ones that find a way not to do the things that are difficult. It's always the case. Change and embracing that is always difficult. But in looking at that strategic landscape, what are the things we need to focus on? Again, succession planning, massive. In private sector businesses, the first generation makes it, second generation builds it, third generation destroys it. It's not a saying, it is actually a statistical reality. It is. You can't allow that to happen to your businesses. You need it to deal with the hard issue of change in terms of status, in terms of position, in terms of power in your family businesses. Deal with the succession. Find out if your children really want to be in the business. For God's sake, find out if they have the aptitude to be in the business. And deal with it. And deal with it. It may be simply better for them to be getting a nice income and hand over the business to professional managers. But here's what, there's no right or wrong answer. Generally, people who are of intelligence and passionate about their business, who've been working in the family business all their life, most likely will be good at it. But here's what, you need to define that. You need to define how the transition of power will take place. Next thing, professionalization. We need to do it. Need to look at, do we have the best people? Do we provide the best face to market? I know the vast majority of top quality professionals would prefer not to work for family-run companies. Why? They start off with the assumption that certain positions will be held for certain people. You're cutting yourself out of a huge part of the market. That needs to be addressed. How is your balance sheet organized? How are we going to organize it now? How are we going to organize it later? What are going to be our capital requirements for change? Are we going to need to come to the markets either for debt or equity? Where is it going to come from to match the strategic initiatives? Must address that. Information technology. What is our strategy? A lot of the disruption is coming from there. Where are we placed in there? Are systems secure? Are we using technology to transform how we go to market? Yeah? Very, very few companies, in my experience, are doing this. But where we are right now in Trinidad and Tobago, I'm not politically motivated by any means. But I don't know if we have the will as a people to do the things that are required to restructure, not restructure our economy. I'm not one of those who said we must move away from energy. I'm not that. That is our resource. It's going to be relevant. We have major plans on the ground. What we need to do is to incentivize those that are here to actually get those plans moving. But it's been year after year after year after year, and nothing seems to be happening. Major concern. Okay, so some thoughts. After we've done the strategic planning process, break it down year by year. Do a robust business plan. Monitor it every month. Be a slave to it. We stopped doing that in our business. Probably for a 5-year period because of distraction. I cannot tell you the pain it caused us. We have started to do it again within the last 9 months. I cannot tell you the focus it has brought back. But it's not just about money. There are many other things you need to consider. What is the ethical face of the business? What do we stand for? How do we engage with our people? There are a lot of other factors. But at the core of it, you need to plan each month. In this environment, look at your cost reduction strategies. Any banker will fund, for a profitable business, will fund a cost reduction strategy. Why? Because the cash that you're creating from this strategy will fund the debt payments. I'm not a mean person, but quite frankly, the payback, unless you're a TSTT, the payback on a staff rationalization plan is less than a year usually. Sometimes less than 6 months. But that's just one thing. It's not just about cutting people. They are your greatest resource. You've trained them, you've kept them. But it's something you definitely need to look at. But beyond that, examine other ways that the business works. I'll give you an example. In our assurance business right now, Kofi, Lisa, tell me if I'm wrong, we are probably going to outsource 30% of our assurance business to India. Throw a line over the net. Send the work up, get it back 2 days, probably done in faster time, better quality, less errors. We're going to digitize our tax business. Do your returns online. Simple things. But so we're looking at all aspects of our cost base to get it consistent with where we see the outlook is. Your balance sheet. We just heard yields are going up, rates are going up. To use a cricket analogy, add 2 wickets to your score and see how clever you look. Add 2 percentage points to your debt and see what your debt service cover is. We're not saying don't invest, but be prudent in what you invest in. If you can deliver. Talk to your bank. Your bankers much prefer to hear about the problem before it has occurred, as opposed to after. And and I can say this with confidence, having worked with many a private sector company, reduce your drawings. The business needs a certain amount of capital. If you put yourself in a liquidity position that is not favorable, in times where disruption is great, you're just preparing yourself for somebody else to take your wicket. Be prudent in terms of your balance sheet management. Consider all options for expansion. You don't have to buy all the time. You can partner. You can joint venture with other people. Put everything on the table. But again, you have to scan the market. Consider geographic diversification. Guyana seems to be on the rise. We'll wait to see. Cuba is opening up. There are other opportunities outside of Trinidad. In other words, we are, for better or for worse, over the next 3 years, in my view, a deficit-financed one-trick pony. It may extend longer than that. You have to ask yourself, does my level of diversification in my business, in terms of the markets I operate, is it consistent with that profile, or should I be looking outside to diversify my risk? And as we said before, leverage technology in your go-to-market processes. Engage deeply with your customers. Survey them formally. Survey them informally. Focus on the best talent. Focus on the way you attract that talent. Focus on the way young people in particular see your organization. Are you a place that they would want to come and work or not? Yeah? And then lastly, innovate, change, reinvent. Sounds like big words, but really it's not. It's just looking at your business to see what can I do better? What can I cut out of my process? Yeah? Millennials. Increasingly, they are going to present a huge challenge to businesses that do not know how to interact with them. Their level of patience, level of loyalty, demand for respect, demand for equity in terms of how they're paid, how they're rewarded in other ways, is increasing. If you don't try to understand that and react to it, then you could be in a very dangerous situation. We can see sometimes in our business turnover rates in excess of 30% in a year. It can get ridiculous. It can get ridiculous. We can lose half of our ranks at one level if they're dissatisfied. Because you're training people, they're mobile. Yeah? How do you react to them? Greater flexibility. You don't really have to go through our traffic every day to come here to work, you know. If your technology can do it, so be it. Explain to them how the business operates and how they'll be treated fairly in that business. Yeah? Reward them for their performance. Yeah? Give them a career path where you're not guaranteeing it, saying this is what can happen as you transition through that period. The reason why I say focus on it is, remember, what we're trying to do is we're trying to re-engineer our production process to get it as low cost and as sustainable as possible. Our people are our greatest resource. We have to adapt to what we're seeing. Yeah? So in closing, simple message. We are not alone. Our problems are very similar to what people in every jurisdiction around the world are facing. What makes our challenge greater is we have a systemic problem stemming from a lack of diversification. We have a systemic problem in terms of lack of competitiveness as a jurisdiction compared to other significant players in the region, in the world that we operate in. Taking that into context, we need to figure out where our businesses are going to go for the next 5 to 10 years, and having come to that determination, start to plan for it. Thank you.